the regular city commission meeting of Tuesday, March 15th to order. We're expecting Commissioner Olsman any moment, but we can start with, if you would all join us to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Start with approval of the agenda. There is one modification, deleting item number 5.
Yes.
And I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We have minutes from the regular commission meeting of February 23rd. Should have. Motion to
Make a
approve.
motion that we approve the minutes of the regular meeting
He
of
startled to
February
see Odo
23rd.
directly above him, clinging to the rock, fully upside down.
Second?
I'll second that, Mr. Murphy.
I hate falls.
All right, any comments? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Communications. Any comments on the communications? Hearing none, the communications are received and filed. And our county commissioner made it here quickly.
I did. I was double scheduled because Hazel Park moved their meeting because of election night, so I made it. Helene Zach, County Commissioner, and I do want to let you know about things going on in the county. We talked about the Zika virus initiative, and the county has allocated $150,000 to this particular public health issue, doing an education plan, helping communities roll out different programs similar to what they did with the West Nile virus, several years ago. There's a wonderful opportunity if there are any parents of high school juniors, soon to be seniors, or the teen council watching. There's a program called Leadership Oakland that trains leaders throughout our county, business people. And several years ago, they started a Junior Leadership Oakland program. And it is for students entering senior year in high school. And it's designed to promote leadership through personal and professional development and community involvement opportunities in Southeast Michigan. Fabulous program. It runs from June 20th to 22nd, and you have until, I think it's mid-April, to apply. And to find the application, you go to www.leadershipoakland.com. And Leadership Oakland also has a newer director that I used to work with at Beaumont Health System that's fabulous. She did leadership development there. So I strongly encourage, I hope that we have somebody from our community apply. I also want to let you know that other things that we're doing in the county is that we are investing more in security. We have this whole plan, and there was a little bit of surplus money, so we're trying to expedite some of the security plans in the buildings. And this is a concern in many government agencies. And finally, the Regional Transit Authority. We are going to have a vote put before us in November about funding the RTA plan. And there are some hearings set to take a look at the different corridor plans. The one set for Oakland County is on Saturday, April 2nd from 10 to 12:30 p.m. It's at the Crowfoot Ballroom at 1 South Saginaw in Pontiac. There's also another meeting that's going to review all 3 proposed corridor plans on Tuesday, March 29th. And the 3 corridor plans are Michigan, Gratiot, and Woodward Avenue. And this meeting on Tuesday, March 29th is from 4 to 7 p.m. It's at Aloft Detroit, which is in the David Whitney Building, which is at 1 Park Street in Detroit. And I do encourage people to go chime in. This is an opportunity to give some additional feedback on the proposed plan before it goes live. Any questions for me? Yes.
Just a comment. We can also request a presentation from the RTA. There is a group that is doing presentations.
Absolutely. That is always available. Any other questions?
No more. Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for coming. Public participation. This is an opportunity for the public to speak to an item that is not on the agenda. Please come forward, identify yourself.
Good evening, David Sloan, 8050 Lincoln, Huntington Woods. Since you've eliminated number 5 in the agenda, I want to have some remarks with regard to the Ethics Committee in the city. How ethical is it for the commissioners to solicit or include their own friends, political, personal, or business, on the Ethics Committee? Their names on the list that endorsed, campaigned, and donated to your campaigns. Is it proper to consider these people on a committee to judge ethical behavior? Is it possible to have Ethics Committee reciprocity with another city? Because I think this might resolve numerous issues. So I would expect that you would reevaluate some of these names in your voting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ken Zeno, 8634 Huntington. I have filed an ethics complaint against the commissioner, and in the last meeting, 2 things happened. First, 2 members of the ethics committee recused themselves. I would like a public explanation as to what business relationship they had with the commissioner under complaint, why they recused themselves. 2, you did a procedural nonsense move, which is you denied Mr. Johnson. Did your firm work on this? There was a proposal that came before this last month, and the commissioners, in what I would say is a classic stall and delay move, said, well, you don't have terms on the commissioners. So who did the legal work on the proposal to appoint alternates? Did your firm, Mr. Johnson, do that legal work, or did it just come up from the city staff, number 1? Number 2, why to the commissioners did you not just say, we will move to put term limits in place on the alternates that are in place in the other ones? This clearly looks like delay, stall, and it's, to me, clearly anti-open government.
Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Crystal Proxmeyer, and I am the editor and publisher of the Oakland County 115 News. I just wanted to introduce myself to people that I don't know yet. We started in Ferndale as an online news site for Ferndale and have grown countywide, sort of growing out into the other communities, including Huntington Woods. So I just wanted to say hi to the people that don't know me yet, and to let people know that there is a website. Since Patch and other publications have been scaling back, we are building up to fill that void in a very grassroots kind of way, with a comprehensive event page and city-by-city news coverage. And I invite anybody that watches these meetings and cares about what's going on in the city, if you have news to share, anybody is welcome to reach out to me. and we can put it on the website. The website is oc115.com. That's because we have news and events daily and special features on the 1st and 15th. So just want to say hi to everybody. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Seeing none, public participation is closed. And we'll move on to the items of business. Our first item of business is the commission organization rules and order of business. I'm going to start by addressing a few of things that have changed in this document since it was published, from what you saw online with the minutes, because of commissioner comments that were directed at our city manager. And I'm just going to go, I'm not going to hit every one of them, but I'm going to hit the majority of the points. When we talked anywhere in this document about the time that either public or commissioners are allowed to speak, we were consistent throughout the document in the revision here and changing that to 3 minutes. And with that 3 minutes each time, it is also allowed to be extended by the, it said the mayor in the document, that has been changed to the chair in case that the mayor is not present. And the main, just to step back a moment, the main reason why we put a time limit on that is for when there is an issue that has a lot of residents with a lot of opinions at a meeting, and in order to encourage everyone to share their opinion, we want to hear as much public opinion as we possibly can. So by having a 3-minute limit, hopefully it will give everyone in the audience an opportunity to speak. If there is only one or two or a few people that have an opinion and want to say something about an issue, we're not gonna limit it to 3 minutes as long as you're making reasonable points. We're gonna be fine with that. And that's the purpose behind the minutes. We also changed, let's see, minutes. And I don't think there were any other real major changes here, were there? All, this entire document is based on 3 things, basically. Robert's Rules of Order, the Open Meetings Act, and the city charter. And it's just sort of a way of helping out elected officials as well as the public, so they know what our procedure is and how we conduct a city meeting. So with that,
I would say, once these get adopted, then we will fashion a much shorter version, rules just for the public, and we will be printing those on the back of the agendas. So as you pick up the agendas, the rules will be on the back for you to use as well.
one other point I guess I should make, the 3 minutes that are allowed for commissioners and public to speak is a number that's also used in Oak Park, Berkeley, Troy, and Ferndale. Royal Oak is the one exception to that. They allow a 5-minute remark during public participation at the beginning of their meeting, and they do not allow any public participation on individual agenda items. So we didn't feel that that was appropriate. We thought that the public should certainly be able to have input as each item comes up, so that's why we chose to leave that in there.
I just want to add that Oakland County adopted a 3-minute rule a couple of years ago, and we even have a timer too. But I don't suggest that, but just to allow, when there are different issues, it does allow for more people to speak out. So I think it's good government.
Any other public comments?
David Sloan, 8050 Lincoln, Huntington Woods. Limiting public participation to 3 minutes at the beginning of the meeting and during the agenda items, and elimination of the public participation at the end, I feel is wrong. The passage of these rules would stifle debate, dissent, and public input. We should want to open the city government for all to see and to participate. On October 21st, 2014, a motion to stifle participation by the public was defeated in this chamber by 3-2. Commissioners White and Jenks and Mayor Gillum voted to prevent a motion put forth by Commissioners Paul and Olsman to limit the public participation at that time to 2 minutes. Why is a change needed when things have been working so well for all these years? Why do we need to be the most restrictive of democratic rights in our areas? If you want people to come to the meetings, you have to let them talk. And as Mayor indicated, Royal Oak is 5 minutes each, and I think that's fair. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Ken Zeno, 8634 Huntington. It saddens me that two commissioners voted against public participation. I urge you to open it up, do not constrict, and allow basically unlimited, within reason, comments. I mean, I understand why certain lawyers with conflicts of interest want to shut down public participation, but the actions of this commissioner meetings in the last couple of years have basically been, one, we don't believe in the equal rights clause of the Constitution.
Point of information, we've got a personal insult now running.
Oh, okay. Mr.
Yeah.
Jenks, how would you like me to
Mr.
address that?
Zeno, please address the chair and continue.
I'm sorry. I mean, I didn't know.
Thank you.
I'm addressing the chair.
We don't need a tax on individuals, sir.
Well, we have an ethics complaint against a person who has voted against public participation. I note that, however you want to deal with that. I also note that under the Equal Protection Law of the Constitution, that this commission has created two classes of citizens in dealing with various zoning and zoo matters. And now we have in front of us limiting public participation. I would ask you to consider that open government allows public participation and not limited public participation. Thank you.
Any other comments? Seeing non-public participation is closed, we have a motion on the ordinance. Is this an ordinance or
It's not an order.
the commission, organization rules and order of business?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Now, I have a couple of comments. With respect to paragraph 14, use of communication devices during meetings. I realize that in an electronic age, people can get innocuous emails and innocuous texts, which they can glance at, things like that. But I realize that the purpose of the rule here is to prohibit communication between members of the commission. So the idea that one commissioner can't text another during a meeting and say, what do you think about this or what do you think about that, which I wholeheartedly concur in. And you know, it's in today's age, you have, it's unfortunate you would think that you even have to have rules like this, but just as an aside, the State Bar of Michigan a couple of years ago, at my suggestion, adopted a rule that arose out of a specific incident where a lawyer was sending emails to a witness during a deposition. And doesn't look so good, to say the least. And it led to a change in a court rule that prohibits any type of electronic communication with a witness during a deposition. And I would simply favor that there be a period after the word meetings in the second line. And I don't think it's necessary to add in the business about communicate with other commission members, because a lot of what we do here is appearance. And nobody, unless we're gonna have everybody looking over our shoulder to see who we're texting or emailing, I'd be a little bit more comfortable if it just said during meetings, period. It should say meetings went on the record, period. And but on the other hand, I'm not looking or seeking to take away, you know, the good faith associated with all this that we all take an oath to uphold. But I just think that there's no reason that for the span of a 2-hour meeting, anybody sitting here has to communicate electronically with anybody else during an open session in the meeting. If we take a break or whatever, it's a different issue. But on the record, I don't think it's a very good idea. So that would be my only suggestion. And then my only other suggestion, and it's not, and I thought about talking about it, and I thought, well, we don't even need to mention it, is in the subparagraph 6 under agenda, under commissioners' remarks. Those of you who from the public who have watched these meetings for a while know that we've gone away from the sort of longer commissioner comments at the end of the meetings, because it just seems like during a meeting, if there's a topic that gets discussed, it gets discussed, and there's really no, maybe it's a testament to days gone by where people say, you know, it's, you know, whatever, it's spring or it's fall or it's summer, and have a good time or enjoy, or, you know, and I mean, and there's nothing wrong with a courtesy send-off, but, you know, I was originally going to say that subpart J should say commissioner's remarks optional at the discretion of the commissioner, but I think that's probably a given too. It's like my comment about the other one. I realize there's good faith inherent in the process. I mean, I just, you know, if you have nothing to say, you don't have to talk, and there's no reason to lengthen the meeting for just to say things because you think people expect to hear them. I mean, the number of people who watch these meetings on television is pretty low, to say the least, and I wish it was higher. But anyway, so those would be my only comments. Other than that, this is a topic that had a lot of discussion last year. The changes that are being made are very reasonable in accordance with what many other municipalities do. The purpose really of shortening the time is to encourage citizen participation, not discourage it, and to open the meetings up for more people who can come and talk. And there's the well-heeled or well-honed expression, if you will. If I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter. So I think that if you can't say it in 2 minutes at one of these meetings, that what I learned after the last few years is most things can be said in short order. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, you know, when I initially read this, you know, a couple things that jumped out at me. I'm pleased to see the revision that was brought before us this evening. This is the people's government. This is citizen government here, and certainly there is absolutely zero intent to, in my opinion, stifle any public communication. In fact, I want to encourage as much public communication as we can. This puts us on par with all of our neighbors. All of our neighbors have adopted similar rules of procedure. They're all 3 minutes, Royal Oak being the only exception, but I would now argue that we are 1 minute longer than Royal Oak, and that we allow comments not only before the meeting, but we allow comments on agenda items. Royal Oak allows 5 minutes one time before the meeting. So here you could have 6 minutes, there you have 5. So I'm comfortable with the 3 minute limit. I'm also comfortable with it because the mayor can extend that. And we had a situation, may have been our last meeting, or the meeting before, where we had a resident here who did a very good job communicating the situation about some defacing of a postal box on 11 Mile. No question in my mind, she went beyond 3 minutes, but nobody objected because it was a very important issue that she was communicating, and we all needed to hear that. So I'm comfortable with that. Without having something like this in place, we risk being arbitrary in how residents are treated, and I don't want that to be the case. I want it to be known that it's 3 minutes for everyone, and it's not some unlimited amount of time that could be stifled by the mayor or stifled by a city commissioner. So I'm much more comfortable having a document in place that will sort of govern how this meeting will take place. Ultimately, this is a business meeting. We're here to conduct the city's business. We're here to solicit input from the residents, and I think that this document does a good job of not only addressing that, but addressing some other things sort of outside of the meeting environment. You know, when a new commissioner takes over, it talks about an orientation for that commissioner. It talks about what documents they're given. All very important things, and so I think it does a lot of good things in that regard as well, Mr. Mayor, and so I am in support of it.
Commissioner Jenks.
I actually am in agreement with Mr. Sloan. I love to talk. So 3 minutes is terrible for me, but I can make the adjustment. And I have to point out that we have 5 agenda items. So anybody that's in this room can talk for a quarter of an hour. And a lot of times the agenda is longer. And frequently in the organizations that I'm involved in, you don't automatically get an option to speak on every agenda item. Now, so I mean, I'm in agreement with this, although I don't completely like it. But it treats everybody equally. And the reality is if you look at all of our surrounding communities, they're using the same standard. Now, I do have a concern on page 3, item F. It currently reads County Commissioner remarks, and I would like to recommend that that be amended to say elected officials serving Huntington Woods remarks. And the rationale for that is Robert Wittenberg may want to speak. Senator Vince Gregory may want to speak. Congressman Levin may want to speak. Or our 2 U.S. senators may want to speak. Elected and directly related to serving Huntington Woods. So it's narrowly focused. I doubt very much that we'll get more people normally than the county commissioner, but because of what's going on in Lansing, we really need to hear more frequently from them because they're taking away a lot of local control. So I mean, I'd like to make an amendment on F so that it reads elected officials serving Huntington Woods remarks. I don't know if there's a second to it or.
Second. Well, no, I need to have Commissioner Iverson accept that. Because she
Sorry
already
about
seconded
that. I'm trying to be friendly.
Yes. What, do I get to speak first? Is that what we're doing here? Or do
Well,
we have to do this first?
You have to do this first and then you can.
Okay. Okay, I agree to that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner.
Okay, so I also, at the beginning, I thought 2 minutes was a little short. I know that when I've come to speak before the commission, sometimes just remembering my name and getting my address out could take 2 minutes. But at the same time, I don't want us to become a commission where we've got people coming in to filibuster either. And that could be, we would risk that. I think 3 minutes is fair. I think that it's also going to be attributed to the commission as well. We also are kept to a time limit. And I think that, again, as Commissioner Jenks mentioned, when there are agenda items, 8, 10 agenda items, there's an opportunity to speak for 3 minutes at each of those items. So, so I believe this is a good guideline for us to follow.
Thank you. We did have one other, Commissioner Olsman had one other comment. I don't know what the rest of the commission feels about that. On item 14, about just leaving it at shall refrain from the use of electronic or wireless communication devices during meetings. Period. Is that something
I
that
make
we?
a motion to amend that.
Second?
You have to accept that.
Yeah.
I think, since he made the original motion,
Maybe.
how can we do that?
Okay, yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes. If, and then the supporter needs to
On this-
agree as well.
Okay,
Okay, I'll support that.
okay. So that is a period after meetings and eliminating to communicate with commission members or with members of the public, regardless of whether the device is provided by the city.
A question?
Yes.
On page 7, now, item I, reading from books, reports, etc. is only allowed with general consent of the commission by vote or general consent, that is, if there are no objections. I do not understand this. I think it's fine on the floor of the United States Senate when someone wants to filibuster. But, in other words, I can't cite anything from a report.
You would need general consent of the rest of the commission to read a book to us.
Yeah, but it says books, reports, etc.
Citing isn't reading a book.
You can cite it, but you can't read it.
Citing means referencing an article, an authoritative source, a case.
I'd like to see that deleted. This is a bizarre statement. Think it through. We have never had anyone in the 17 years I have been on this commission.
Well, Commissioner Jenks, there's always a first time.
You can only do it in 3 minutes, remember.
That can be a pretty lethal 3 minutes.
I'd like to move to delete that. It's not very clear.
That would have to be accepted. I don't really.
Last time I second the motion.
I don't see why you're so opposed to that.
Because very frequently I'm going to cite a source,
Which is
but I am
fine.
reading, well, if I cite a source, what I'm going to do is say, it becomes bizarre. Go to SEMCOG, you know, when you're talking about citing a source, then you tell, you do like a 2-minute sentence which cites where you got something, and I'm not technically allowed to say,
I could not disagree with you more. What we're talking about, what that sentence refers to, is reading a passage out of a text or a book or off an iPad or something where it means more than just referencing an authoritative. So I would never take that statement to mean referencing something or say that there's a very good authoritative thing. Plus, anyway, what's the big issue? If you want to do it, all you have to do is ask, with the permission of the body, I'd like to read it. What's the harm?
it's utterly bizarre.
Well,
It is utterly bizarre. I can see it in the rules of the United States sentence, because for purposes of filibustering, you need this kind of sentence, and they ignore it anyway.
Unfortunately, we don't have a second to your motion, so.
But I have a book I'd like to read.
I'm not completely clear how number 14 got revised. Can you go over that?
Period after the word meetings,
Meetings and
and
everything
delete
else?
the rest of the sentence.
The whole rest of the sentence or the whole paragraph?
No, the whole rest of the sentence.
Okay. Well, because the second sentence allows you to have electronic devices to communicate with family members, et cetera, so if you don't like anything, then the whole paragraph needs to be stricken after meetings.
There are two different purposes. One is basically breaking the Open Meetings Act, and the second sentence is an entirely different concept.
Yeah, you're getting a text from your spouse that says, you know, I'm sick and I'm headed to the hospital.
Okay,
That's what that's referring to, the second sentence.
all right, thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the commission organization rules and order of business as revised?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. We'll publish a synopsis of that.
Be careful, might need approval.
Commissioner Jenks can read it at the next meeting.
I won't be able to without your permission.
Moving on, agenda item number 2 is the study on housing options for our aging population. Amy, do you want to take the lead on that one?
What you have before you is a proposal to expand on the report that you got today called this week, the Housing Options for an Aging Population Report. For the new members of the City Commission and people in the audience, I'd like to give some background on how we got to this point. So it started off in 2010, the Senior Advisory Committee was created by the City Commission. They had 4 duties. One was provide a forum for seniors to present issues of concern. Second was to study the need for and feasibility of senior housing options in the city. Third was make recommendations regarding senior services. And last was to encourage senior involvement in senior-related activities. So shortly after the committee was created, they conducted a needs assessment survey for residents 50 and older. Aging in place was important to the respondents, with most recognizing the need for outside help with home maintenance, and 35% of the respondents expressed an interest in alternative housing options. The Senior Advisory Committee believes looking at ways to accommodate residents who wish to age in place in our community is important based on aging trends nationally and at Huntington Woods. For instance, SEMCOG estimates by 2035 there will be a 24% decrease in population under 18 and a 72% increase in residents that are over 65. So in other words, in 20 years, SEMCOG projects that 25% of the city's population will be over 65 compared to the 13.5% that was reported in the 2010 census. So given our aging demographics and an interest in looking at alternative housing options, the City Commission authorized the first phase of the senior housing feasibility study that identified potential locations and housing types within the city, as well as introduced the concept of universal design. And universal design involves educating residents when they go to do additions to their home or make interior modifications, that they take into account the fact that they could make modifications to help them age in place now, so those modifications are in place later on. So you received phase 1. Before you tonight is a proposal to consider holding 1 or 2 public forums to solicit feedback on these potential housing alternatives identified in the first phase. The results would be used to prepare a report containing suggestions on how to educate and incentivize the universal design concept, and also to summarize resident feedback on alternative housing options for aging population. Should the community be in favor of alternative housing options, and we don't know whether they will or they won't, if they are, the report will also recommend zoning changes to expand the zoning districts to allow these different housing options as permitted uses. So the major portion of the phase 2 cost is to prepare and facilitate these public forums to introduce residents to the concept of universal design and to consider different types of housing options, so residents can give us feedback on whether there is interest in alternative housing and if the housing types that are suggested are appropriate for Huntington Woods, since we are basically a single-family residential city in character. So it's important to understand that no specific proposals are being contemplated or advocated, because a community conversation is in order before any land use or zoning change is considered. In fact, this proposal is the complete opposite of that, and that we are asking residents what it is that they prefer and what it is that they are comfortable with before any proposals are rolled out, if any. So this is learning about what residents want as they consider the concept of aging in place, so that community input can shape future policy decisions. And holding public forums with graphics of what different housing options look like seems to be the most efficient way to get that kind of feedback. The whole point of this proposed study is to be proactive when it comes to housing options for our aging population and engage our residents in a thoughtful and strategic discussion on what is appropriate for Huntington Woods. So what you had before you is a proposal with 2 options. The first is a $7,800 option, and the second is $1,000 more at $8,800. The difference being the less expensive will be one public forum, presumably in the evening, about 3 hours, on a weekday. And then the second option would be 2 forums, one weeknight and then one on Saturday morning, so that as many people as possible would take advantage of 2 different opportunities and at 2 different time frames. So that basically is the proposal that's before you. And if you have any questions, let me know. And also the chair of our senior advisory committee is here if you have any questions for him.
Howard, do you want to make any comments before we move to the?
Public comment.
Don't have to, but.
No, I'll be happy.
Mr. Mayor, member of the commission, thank you for taking this issue up. This is, as our city manager describes, is getting us closer to the starting line. We're talking about what sort of needs do we have in the short term and what sort of needs will we have in the longer term. How can we help our citizenry live in the homes that they're in right now and think about the homes that are going to be built in the future, to allow for visitability, meaning that if I'm living in a house, how can I have someone come and see me? How can I get in and out of my house? My bungalow that I live in, well, I didn't say, I'm at 13102 Nadine.
As long as we're
My name's Howard Collins.
Thank you.
But my bungalow has 2 steps up to get in on both doors. If I'm in a position later on in my life where I can't navigate stairs, how do I get in and out of my house? And when I get into my bungalow, how do I turn the initial turn to get into the door? If I'm in a wheelchair, that may be impossible. So if I was rebuilding in my house right now, and if others like me were thinking about doing the same thing, would I build it differently? Would I be offered the opportunity to think about it? Many of us don't, until many of the members on our committee were confronted with this notion, we hadn't even thought about this as something. Clearly the builders of our houses back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, when many of our houses were built, weren't thinking about this stuff. We need to. So the universal design and the visitability concepts are really important for us. The notion of the method of housing and the location of housing, it is a wide open question. As I said, we're getting to the starting line. This is where we want public input. We want people to help us understand what as a city do we want for our aging population. And I say aging population, and we are an aging population. The demographics don't lie. This is something that we've got to deal with now, because if we wait 10 years, it's going to be really much more complicated and more expensive, and the opportunities won't be nearly as good, I suspect. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comments.
Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, I have read all the documents in the housing options for seniors, and I've attended the meetings. This commission has already spent $5,000 on this Phase 1 report, and now you're asked to approve the report and to spend another $8,000 so that they can explain to the residents what's in the report. This Phase 1 report has several controversial issues. 2 of the plans out of the 5 indicated in the Phase 1 report call for a new city hall. Do we need and can we afford a new city hall? This keeps appearing in the senior citizen plans. This plan also asks for rezoning of the interior of Huntington Woods for bungalow homes. Can you explain to the residents of these properties, of the acres and the other properties, why it is necessary to rezone their areas so that a developer can divide the lots for bungalows for senior citizens? Why not direct Carlisle to come up with a decent plan for Coolidge and Woodward Avenue? But keep in mind that you cannot reserve housing for only senior citizens who are residents of Huntington Woods. Also keep in mind that Proposition A makes it far more economical to stay in one's home rather than to buy another home where one could have a huge tax increase. Let's get back to what is important to the senior citizens now. Services to help them stay in their homes.
Could I address that a minute? Because that plan nowhere calls for rezoning. Absolutely does not suggest that call for rezoning. What it suggests is that we ask residents whether or not they're interested in alternative housing in the acres. And that is input that the city commission needs in order to make a thoughtful decision. The city is not advocating rezoning. That report did not advocate rezoning. And I think it's just not really in the city's best interest to put that out there when that's not in fact the case.
Well, I beg to differ with you because I believe that is presented in their report to discuss putting bungalow row homes in the areas west of Scotia, which would be the acres area. That's what it said in the report.
All set, thank you.
Thank you.
Ken Zeno, 8634 Huntington. Can I have a clarification on the mysterious Howard that the chair recognized first? What is his position and how does he fit into this?
He is the chair of the Senior Advisory Committee
And
and a resident of Huntington Woods. He identified his name and address.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Does he have any business interests in this?
No.
Okay. So the point is, and I agree with Mr. Sloan, that here we go. As I understand it, you want to take out and you want to rebuild City Hall, you want to move DPW, and you want to shut down the park adjacent to City Hall and take that out as part of this proposal. Is that not true? Amy?
No, that's not true.
Okay. Then I think it needs to be, my submission is that you need to clarify exactly what's going on here and what is proposed. I also note that there's an awful lot of consulting firms here that think that the taxpayers of Huntington Woods are an ATM machine, and we can just keep coming back and charging us for something that I believe was dismissed before. But that the point is that we have limited funds, we have no way to raise revenues, we have giant entities here in this town, the zoo, Rackham, that aren't paying us any taxes. And we keep coming back with spending proposal after spending proposal. And right now, in front of us, water and sewage, completely unfunded pension funds, Mr. Jenks, closed hearings on how they're going to allocate that to us. We have not seen the engineering report.
Point?
Off
Please,
point, sir.
Please keep your comments.
We've got a lot of millages in front of us, and I think we want to be careful how we spend our money. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Linda Permut at 26392 Huntington Road. I'm very new with being here, and I thank you for letting the public be here. I just get a lot of innuendos, and I'm not sure what is exactly going on because I'm probably more of the average Huntington Woods resident that is not fully aware, but you hear various things. So I know that this housing proposal potential has been out there for quite a while. So I have a couple questions. The concept of the forms that you are considering doing, and this is in the $8,000 bracket. A couple questions on it. First of all, why does it cost $8,000? What is the plan of the form? And how is the money, how does that work in terms of like the money into the form? What's the reason for that amount? That's my first question, then I have something else. So I don't know if you want me to give my other question.
Yep, go ahead.
All right, and then I'll sit down, you can take it from there. The other one is that if there is going to be a public forum, whether it's 1 or 2 or 3, I'd like to make a recommendation because I know that there's these meetings and you hear about these things, and I know that it's, I don't know exactly all the ways that it's particularly publicized. Because this is such a huge issue, I would love the concept of a direct mailing, first-class mailing to every resident, so that they really do know about it, and it's not just because they've received information via the email. When issues are this large, it might be a very positive thing. You want to hear from every single person. It's one that you really do want the public involved in. And in terms of getting surveys from previous, I do understand that there was something with there was a survey originally done. I don't even remember that. And so it's something that we hear about 35%. The question is like, how many people really responded to it? So I think that in a case that's this large, for the integrity of Huntington Woods, every person should be getting a mailing, first class, to know about the public forums and exactly how the money is going to be used for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking it. Stephen Ingber, 10445 Talbot. My only question is this something that's actually needed? I understand that there's a need for senior housing to figure out where we are going, and that's fine. But shouldn't we let sort of the markets dictate it? I know we're planning now for 10 or 15 years, like Commissioner Joe said. But you know, what is good for us now, what we think is good now, may change in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. I mean, look what would have been good for us in 1995 or 2000 and we voted on it. So I think spending the money when we're obviously not in a position to build any of these housing, and that would be private developers, why not wait and see if the market bears it? Then private developers will come in and make a proposal that we knock down 3 houses or build something, or knock down the rec center, or knock down whatever it is. But we're voting on a generalization here now and spending money on an if come maybe. It just seems very loosey-goosey to spend $8,000 on an if when we don't know what the if is, and certainly the if is going to change in a year. I mean, we all know how things are changing. To do it for a 10 or 15 year out study, it just seems like putting a lot of money out there when we're going to create the study, ask all these people what to do, when we're really not in the place to put a shovel in the ground. We don't even have an idea. And if a private company wants to come with an idea and say that, then let them spend their money, come up with an idea, and then we'll propose it, and then as a city you guys can then take it. But to just go willy-nilly and say, hey, this sounds like a good idea. There's a lot of good ideas. We don't need to spend $8,000 on a good idea that may or may not come for 5, 10, 15, or 20 years. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Michael Prentice, 13139, I beg your pardon, 13135 Talbot. A new master plan was commissioned and adopted by this city not long ago. How much did that cost? Was this issue raised by that master plan? If not, why not? Does it instruct us in any way that could save us some money? Thank you.
David Gillespie, 12909 LaSalle. I actually participated in here with the senior plan for the first study that was here earlier last year. I actually live just behind here, so it kind of concerned me as far as when I heard proposals of a 2 or 3 story building that I would actually see out from my house. I guess thinking about it, I understand I'm going to be a senior one day, and I think it's great to think about this, but my concern is, does it really help our seniors? If other people could just buy the homes or these housing units, how does our seniors actually benefit from that? So we really aren't helping the seniors at that point, and maybe we should think about how we help the seniors now instead of the public-private part of it. I think public property is very sacred and cherished in the city, and us taking a joint venture removes us from controlling our property. I think like the Sam's, market, I think that was great that the city was able to get property back in the city. And if we need to do expansions here, we need new things, that was a great location, but I think it was for the cost the city paid for it, I think it's a diamond for what the needs are in the city for expansion. But going to a public-private cooperation in this site right here, essentially, I don't think that's a good idea to give away control of city property. It's very precious, and it's precious to people here too. And I'm not so popular about, it's not very popular in my eyes that I have to see a structure that's 2 or 3 stories tall from my location. I know there was some concern about zoning. If zoning changes here, does it change for the other acre parcels in the city? I live on an acre parcel, and I actually think it's beautiful to see there's ranch-style homes on those acres. I originally was told that those acre lots were acres because of the Vincenta River that runs through the city there. We get a lot of water in our yards. Accept it, you live there, that's what, accept it, but I'd be concerned that the house behind me could be sold, tore down, and three-story houses could be built in an area that it doesn't look like those houses even belong in those acre lots. So I kind of have some more aesthetics of how it should look in that area, and it kind of looks beautiful the way it is, and to start opening up to developers, because it's not going to be a person in Huntington Woods that's going to do that. And I guarantee, it doesn't matter how much that property costs, a developer will have the money and he'll find a way and know, because they do it on the small lots here right now. That's all I have to say, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments before we close public participation? All right, leave it up to the commission. Want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to move to accept the report and the proposal for phase 2.
Which option?
I'm not sure of that. I think we could discuss. And maybe we can get some input from Howard on the options.
Pick one for the sake of discussion.
Let's do the lower price.
Okay, perfect. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you. Did you want to make a comment?
Yes. In the city of Flint, the state of Michigan chose to save money, and we know what the result was. We have a $6 million general fund budget and a $10 million when you look at the rest. We basically replaced a full-time planner with a part-time consulting firm, and this is a component that we're adding to it. We do not spend as much as we used to, even with this project, for the previous planner. Am I correct? Now, during the next 25 years, our population is expected to be stable, but actually the report you got has some data from 2035, and there's more current data. Senior population is expected to increase by 104.6%, from 846 to 1731, while those under 18, our school-age population, is expected to decline by 14.3%. And this is also in the projections for Berkeley as well, with a 9.5 to 10.5% loss just between 2010 and 2025. People very often, at least young people, move to Huntington Woods because of the quality of Burton and the Berkeley schools. And your property values are a function of that. The population shift will threaten that school. Any impacts of a negative nature to Burton will lower your property values. One of the obligations that I consider as a commissioner, and I'm the wonk person, is the need to increase both population and school-age children for the financial vitality of our city. We get paid per head. If we continue to decline and have no space for families with children to move in, it will cost us. The state of Michigan, during the period 2003 to 2013, diverted $1.87 million that should have come to Huntington Woods in statutory revenue sharing to run its state government. Detroit, which we think is completely incompetent because there's a $491 million shortfall. Their diversion was over $732 million. Growing our population is critical. In 2012, when they did this survey, 35% of the respondents expressed interest in one or more of the following housing options: condominiums, rental apps, apartments, co-ops, housing with limited services. The proposal before us is really to ask seniors, do you have an interest in any different kind of setup other than the house that you're in? It is not to change zoning. None of that stuff. I got a call from the mayor of Oak Park, and she said, you know, her son was concerned because he lives on Talbot Lane. He said, I heard from one of the people that has already spoken that they're going to tear down one or two houses and they're going to build a senior, whatever those small units are. We're nowhere near that. There are the discussion as it related to City Hall and the public safety. A private developer about 10 years ago came in and said, I'll build City Hall and public safety for you, 75-year-old buildings, and we'll put at-market housing for seniors, small apartments above that. You would be able to hit a chord and get public safety to come up at once. We could basically take, instead of this locked-in room, have a room that could be used multi-purposes by seniors and many other people. If we have two departments together, we might even be able to shift from a clerical position to another public safety officer. That died as a concept when the economy dropped. But it's just one of the things. There were two City Hall options. If you build that space much closer to the street here, which is the way a lot of design is done, you would actually probably have less shadow. Shadow goes east to west, remember that. And so the people that are threatened are the Public Works Department and the grass that is in front of the house of this place here. It doesn't go north-south, your shadows. You actually would have a little bit of a noise barrier which might stop some of the 11-mile noise. But the first question is if we do a survey, do seniors have any interest in it? This is never probably going to be assisted living. It's for a go-go senior when a parent or you don't have any other relative that can watch out for you. And you would have instant response above you. If you wanted to go visit someone in California for 2 months, you lock your apartment, you go, there's nothing to clean up. I mean, there are some advantages to smaller kinds of spaces if they were thought of. Now, I know some of us would also like that situation where we could leave as well. But you would lose. We need to open up some of the big houses. The report, if you read it carefully, and it's on the website, says that anything you're going to do has to fit in. You don't just, right now, a builder comes in and craps up your block because they maximize the space and they minimize the quality of what they're putting in. In this instance, instead of waiting afterwards and complaining, we will be laying out a plan as to, if you want to do anything in this area, these are the various rules. If you want to go through planning, it is the trip from hell. Because everyone says your materials have to match, you can't be more than, you can't be less than. I know I've exceeded my 3 minutes, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just a couple of things I'd like to address. First thing I would say is the way that I sort of see this proposal before us this evening is the dollar amounts in here are not to exceed. Okay, so there's sort of what they're proposing as a step one is some community forums, some community input. And I'm just not interested in what seniors have to hear. I'd be interested in hearing what the entire community has to hear. And so if we move down that road and the overwhelming sentiment is we don't want it, then we stop. Whatever expenses we've incurred would be paid, and we would not move on to step 2 or step 3, which involves some more in-depth, potential suggestions to amend the master plan and amend the zoning ordinance down the road if one of these plans was liked by residents at these community forums. So the way I understand it is, there's sort of the initial step is community feedback, and then you would move on sort of down the road if the feedback was well received. I think the resident from Huntington raises a great point, and that is we should communicate this by direct mailing. I think that as I've had discussions with our city manager, I think that things that involve public health, safety, welfare, and things that are of a magnitude like this that have potential to impact the entire community warrant a direct mail approach so we can ensure that we're reaching all of those residents, those that are engaging in social media and our website and all those different things, and those who aren't. So I think that's very important to do. Our master plan, I did attend, before I was elected, I did attend the master plan meeting that the Planning Commission had because I live on Kingston, so like the gentleman who came up and said I was somewhat concerned about having this property redeveloped, I shared that concern and came to the Planning Commission to see. In the way that the Planning Commission addressed it is they sort of, in very general terms, labeled areas on the fringe of the community that might work for this type of development. The Rite Aid location along Coolidge comes to mind. They did identify this band of municipal property here. They also potentially looked at Woodward Avenue and potentially some development there along Woodward. So the master plan, in a very, very broad sense, sort of identified some key areas. What I think that this process is attempting to do is say, okay, community, come in. Is this a concept you support? And if you support it, here are some potential areas where it could go, some potential what a development could look like, and would you support this concept? I have absolutely no agenda with this. I have not made a decision on whether or not I would support some future development. I am open to hearing, what the residents have to say. And so when I received phone calls today from residents who said, there's a new city hall on the agenda and they're rezoning acre lots, I thought the police department delivered the wrong agenda packet to me, because my agenda packet didn't talk about building a new city hall. It didn't talk about rezoning acre lots. My agenda packet talked about a very broad citizen input concept to determine if this idea should even continue to move forward. If the citizen input at this next phase is that it's not warranted, then as far as I'm concerned, it's off the table. And it doesn't move forward. If the community is in support of this, then we do move forward and we look at what the community wants. So those are a few things that, that I wanted to point out and answer some of the residents' questions that they brought up from the floor.
I will admit that I am all over the board on this one. I have lived with my husband's grandfather for 5 years in the neighborhood, and experienced the plight of being less mobile and needing assistance. We're looking into help for my husband's mother now, who broke her hip and now will need help within her home, and some of the universal design issues that they're dealing with now, I think are very important. At the same time, I agree with the idea of a market, letting the market dictate where we go with this sort of thing. I know this is a study, but I guarantee that if we ask residents whether or not they think we should have options available for seniors, they will unequivocally respond yes. Who wouldn't? I would say we do need options. I would sooner approve $8,000 for meaningful changes to help seniors, whether it be universal design, whether it be services provided to them that they cannot do on their own, grocery shopping. So I'm torn. I like the idea of getting more information. I'm not quite sure why we can't rezone areas that it would be of less consequence, such as Woodward currently, and see if that spurs any market movement, because ultimately, once we do this and we determine that yes, people are interested in senior housing, where do we go from here? We then rezone. Well, at that point, there's no guarantee that someone's going to come in and build senior housing. There's no guarantee that we are going to fill those units with residents from Huntington Woods. It's $13,000. I think with the issues the city faces now, we've got a lot of really tough decisions that we need to make. I think that $8,000 adds up over time, and for that reason, I don't think I can support this.
Yes. Well, first of all, it's our job to look ahead, not look back. And you can't look ahead without adequate information and without adequate data and without adequate planning. I think that a microcosm revealed itself of the interest in this in the past year when Sam's was on the market, and I had 3 different people call me and ask if I thought that the city would be open to the idea of, I don't know what the right word is for them, cluster type condos that would have been 1.5 or 2-story built units with underground parking in lieu of what is where Sam's is, which is, hopefully they're gonna have a new name for it so we can stop calling it Sam's. But I thought that was a remarkable interest by those people, and I said, you know, if you have a plan, I suggest you contact the city manager and show it to her. But I was astounded by the number of people, in addition to those 3, who asked me the same question: is the city giving any thought to allowing some multi-unit housing that of an open nature, not senior high-rise towers like you have in Berkeley and in Royal Oak. And we're not talking about anything. We're talking about a market commodity, condos, lofts, call them whatever you want, for people who don't want to live in a 3,500, 4,500 or a larger home, but would like to stay in Huntington Woods. And as you may or may not know, not speaking to anyone in particular, in Huntington Woods, if you look at most of the deeds for the houses, you'll see there's an absolute prohibition on multi-unit housing. That's why if you go to Royal Oak and you see these units like on 4th Street, which are these small apartment buildings with maybe 10, 12 units in them, you say, well, how come they have all these in Royal Oak and we don't have any in Huntington Woods? Because the city attorney at that time, at the direction of the city commission, wrote into every deal, no multi-unit housing. That's why the only duplex in Huntington Woods is on Ludlow.
Across from me.
Right, 1 in the entire city. Now, at that time, whatever people thought about duplexes in terms of the type of home, value, etc., I grew up in a duplex in Northwest Detroit. I assure you, that was not considered, you know, great stuff back then. Now you go to Birmingham, it's considered all, you know, burning hot, you know, for people that have that kind of housing. And what we're looking to do is plan for the future. I don't know, I can tell you this, I have never heard in the 5.5 years I've sat on the city commission, I have never, or 6.5, I'm losing track, I'm having fun, never heard once of a concept of rezoning acre lots to allow multi. I've never heard that, ever, from any source. I have no idea where that comes from, nowhere. Never heard that. We're talking about looking at, for example, along 11 Mile Road, we're talking about some other areas of the city that may afford that, on Coolidge in certain areas. There may be some long-term prospects. Nobody, there is no idea, and the idea here is before you go to the city and say, well, what do you think about this? Somebody's going to say, well, what's this? What do you mean? What's a concrete example of what you mean? So it's a matter of bringing a concept to citizenry that's manageable, that's doable. This business about 11 Mile and taking City Hall and things like that, that was around before I was elected. Well, I mean, I've heard that story for years. And the idea was to get a public-private partnership together to try to, get a city hall built at no expense to the city by a private developer, like Commissioner Jenks said. So, look, you can't get an idea like this from going on Google and typing in senior housing. But I will tell you this, the city that doesn't plan for the future is the city that's gonna be left behind. And all of these concepts now are focused on, the generation of people that is now, reaching, getting older. There's no other politically correct way to say it, but yet want to stay in the city. Like, for example, on my street right now, there were 4 vacant homes of elderly people. Now one has been sold. And these are all people well in their 90s. One house has been vacant now for 5 years. The resident moved out finally when the police had to break down the door because the neighbors were concerned that all the papers were piling up on the porch, and they broke in, and the individual was watching TV and couldn't understand why the police were in the living room. Well, the problem was they had to walk in sideways because of all the accumulation of everything in the house. And that house is still vacant. Now, if that person had had an option when his wife passed away a number of years ago, maybe he would have opted to sell his house, move into a smaller unit, stay in the city in an affordable, safe environment. So I see this as, you can't just go to the citizenry and say, what do you think? The answer is going to be, what do you think about what? And this is the answer to what. So it's a pittance to what we're talking about here. We're talking about the future of Huntington Woods. That's not something that can be planned. You can't look ahead a year or 2 years with that. That's something you have to look out. That's what they call vision. I'm not saying I have it, but I'm looking at people who do. So it's a very reasonable nominal expense to pay. So when people say, well, what do you have in mind? You can say, this is what we have in mind, or these are the options that educated people think.
I agree that we are on the cutting edge here. Our planner, when they brought this report to the Senior Advisory Committee, said that there are very few communities that are looking ahead as being as proactive as Huntington Woods is on this topic, and I think it's very important that we do that. We asked them to think outside the box, to come up with ideas that we hadn't been talking about. That's what they did. They came up with ideas that were outside the box that we can now take to the citizens of Huntington Woods and get their opinion on. I think it's very important that we as Huntington Woods continue to be proactive, to being the leading community in Oakland County and Michigan, and being one of the top communities in the United States. So I think there are many ideas out there, not all senior homes, but ideas like this that we as a city need to pursue. So I'm very much in favor of moving forward. I think we need to get as much public input as we can. So I would myself opt to go with the 2 meetings so we can get as many people involved, both an evening group and a Saturday morning group. The entire community should be invited. We talked about that at the Senior Advisory Committee. not only announcements in the newsletter, but a direct mail piece, you know, with the men's club to drop off a flyer, with raffle tickets, 4th of July raffle tickets. This isn't something we need to rush into. We can take our time, make sure that everyone knows the event is coming up, and get as much input as we possibly can on it.
Sir, are you proposing to modify the,
I don't think I can do that.
Mr. Mayor, I would ask to modify it. If we're gonna do this, I think we need to do it right. And one of the pieces of feedback I received when I had my citizen coffees is, the very first one I did was on a Saturday. And some residents contacted me and said, you know, because of my religion, I don't engage in certain activities on a Saturday. Are you gonna hold it in the
talking
evening?
to you?
Yeah. So, that's right. And so they said, will you be holding any on a weeknight? And I said, yes. And so I think it's important that we try to capture all of the residents and what works for their schedule. I don't want to box it into just on a weekend, which will not work for some folks. I don't want to have it just on a weeknight, which won't work for other folks.
are you proposing a friendly amendment?
I am proposing a friendly amendment.
That's good. Is there a second?
Do you accept it?
I accept it.
Sorry.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the report and moving on with phase 2?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, motion carries. Item number 3, matter of approving collection for the 2016 summer tax properties for the Berkeley School District and authorizing the annual agreement. This one for Tony.
It's just the annual agreement between the school district and the city that we will collect the school taxes on behalf of them, turn them over on the 1st and the 15th of each month.
It's required every year for us to pass that if we're going to collect taxes for the schools.
So moved.
Second.
Support.
Public discussion, please.
Public participation, Mr. Zeno.
8634 Huntington. We are in violation of state regulation on reserves in the school district. You are now proposing to move ahead with a tax collection with no plan to confirm or comply with the law. I would ask
Mr. Zeno, I think you're addressing an issue that is a school board issue that the city commission has
well,
no
excuse me. You're about to approve a tax collection, right, for a district that is out of compliance with the law. I would suggest you move to table this until they come back with a plan to comply with the state regulation on reserves. It's that simple. Why would we just go ahead and feed them money when the school board, by the way, which does not encourage public participation, you're getting the trend here on open government, what is the plan to comply with the law before we just rubber stamp paying them more money? Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just to clarify that, if we don't collect the tax, the county will. And so I would rather make it more convenient for our residents, because if we don't collect it under state law, it automatically defaults to the county treasurer, and then folks have to pay their taxes at the county. So I'd rather make it more convenient so folks can continue to pay their taxes at City Hall as they've always done. Thank you.
Your seating authority.
Public participation, any others? Is now closed. Any other discussion? We have a motion on the floor, I believe, or don't we?
Yeah.
Right down to
I
there.
made it.
That's right, so moved. Oldsman, Roselle. Okay, any other discussion?
Just a point of
Commissioner Jenks.
information. Chris, can we get a response?
On what question?
On the question that was made by Mr. Zeno.
The matter of collecting the taxes has nothing to do with whether or not the school district would be in compliance with other laws. You're either required to collect the tax, or the county will have to collect the tax. But it's an independent issue as to how the money is collected versus how the money is spent. You can't withhold that.
Thank you very much. Call the question.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item number 4, ordinance, revised ordinance for the Board of Ethics.
This is a revision to the ethics ordinance to allow for the appointment of alternate members in staggered terms.
Public comment?
This item has been in front of the Ethics Board since December. In the last meeting,
This
under
item as to
the Ethics Board, you've tabled, there's an ethics complaint that's open. All right? Right? Dispute on that?
no, but
Was it filed in December?
this item that's in front of us that we're
Is how,
discussing at this point.
right? But this has to do with, number one, for the record, has this ethics complaint been in front of the city since December?
We received it in December.
Thank you. Number two, 2 members of the Ethics Board recused themselves from hearing this. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do we have any public comment as to what the business relationships they were involved in against the commissioner who's the complainant or complaintee of the ethics? Have we had any public discussion as why they recused themselves? No. I mean, that's clear. Number 3, this came before this commission last month, and it was tabled. Instead of a friendly amendment, which should have been simply that we limit the terms, right, on the alternates. You didn't do that. You do friendly amendments all the time. Who wrote the change? Did the city attorney approve that? And why did it come before the board without proper form? That allowed a delay. Now we're here to discuss this once again. I'm just saying that it's pretty clear to me that you're not in favor of open government. So the proposal in front of us, and I'd like to hear from the city attorney, where are we right now on the ethics committee? And what does this mean?
Any other comments, Mr. Zeno?
I'd like to hear from him.
All right. Any other comments?
I'd like to hear from him before I can address other comments.
I heard that. Are you done? Any other comments or questions?
Until I hear from the city attorney, I have no further comments.
Okay.
Are you then denying me the right to have a dialogue with him?
You're more than welcome to ask any more questions or make another comment.
I am welcome to, after he comments, I can again comment or ask questions. Is that correct?
If it's during public participation, yes.
Is this public participation?
It is at this point.
And if the city attorney speaks, does that shut down public participation?
Not at this point, no.
Thank you.
Any other public participation? You want to address anything?
Our firm was asked to prepare an amendment to the ethics ordinance to allow for alternates, and we did so. And this is the first opportunity, I believe, that the commission has had to review that work.
Okay.
Well, I'm sorry, but the amendment came about in the last meeting. So your firm did not review the amendment before it came in front of the commissioners?
I think I just explained what
Well,
our firm did. If you,
I'm sorry, I don't understand. The
I'm
last
sorry you
meeting.
don't understand.
All right, well, explain it to me again.
I don't.
It came in front,
It's been explained, it's been.
No, it hasn't
answered
been
and
explained.
So. unless you have
amendment came
another-
before us
Another
without,
topic to talk about?
no, here's the topic. There was a proposal in front of this commission that was tabled on the specific reason, without a friendly amendment, that there was no limits. Your firm did not look at the last proposal So that came from city staff? Where did the proposal come from if you didn't look at it before the last meeting?
I personally did not look at it. That's all I can tell you.
So, my question then to Amy Sullivan, city manager, is who wrote the amendment?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to point out that public participation is a point, according to the Open Meetings Act, that allows the public to give you their views. It is not a cross-examination, it is not a question and answer session. I want to make sure that that's clear.
Okay, my view
Any other
is
comments?
this has the stink of sulfur on it.
Any other comments? At this point, I'm going to close public participation and move this back to the commission table. Do we have a motion to approve the new Board of Ethics ordinance? Ethics ordinance, I'm sorry.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. We do have some interviews scheduled with those that have applied before the next city commission meeting.
We're gonna work on that.
And, but we are working on that, and hopefully we can make appointments for the alternate positions following at that meeting. We are skipping item 5, moving to agenda item number 6, matter of consideration of the readoption of the ICMA 401k money purchase pension plan agreement to include IRS changes.
That's a good explanation. Mandated IRS changes, and we need to adopt them in order for our 401k to be in compliance with those regulations.
So move.
Any public comment? Okay, sorry to interrupt you there. We have a motion, Commissioner Olsman, seconded by Jenks. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We have several reports and minutes. We have a motion to accept and file the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries and the reports and minutes are accepted and filed. Warrant number 308, do I have a motion to accept this subject to final full audit?
Public participation on that? Question
On the warrant?
on the warrant, please? This question for the city treasurer. David Sloan, 8050 Lincoln, Huntington Woods. As someone who's practiced law for over 40 years, I'm always concerned about attorney fees and bills. So I wanted to ask about 3 items that were in the warrant, all March 10th. One to Ehrman, Teicher, Zucker, and Friedman for pensions underfunding for $1,495. And then to Gold, Lang, and Majoris for the Kuhn Drain attorney for $1,155. And to Keller Toma for, it says, general matters for $1,448.95. I wondered if we could just have an elaboration so that we can understand.
David,
what
can you
that-
help me on what page this is that you're raising questions?
Page 3 of the check register, page 3 of 6, and page 4 of 6.
Thank you.
Aiden, if you wanna take the first blush at that.
Sure. The Ehrman Teicher is an attorney law firm that we hired to assist us with our pension negotiations with our command officers unit. The Gold Lang is a specialist that we have hired to help us deal with the bankruptcy proceedings in Detroit as it relates to the discharge of the payment of the George Kuhn drain assessment. And Keller Toma is our labor attorney who helped us with negotiations for command, public safety, and DPW negotiations.
Thank you.
Okay. I think we had a motion, did we have a motion to accept the warrant? Who made that?
No, we didn't.
Oh, we did?
So moved.
Okay, motion,
Second.
any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Public participation, more opportunity for the public.
If I can get up, my back's killing. I don't come as often. I'm Claire Gillette, and I'm one of the managers at DPW. Unfortunately, I forgot to tell Amy about and realize that the next commission meeting is after the Sakra, which is our Earth Day celebration. It is from noon to 3. There is a mailer coming out about it, but it should be an enormously fun activity for all ages. And lots going on, lots of activities for young people, for teenagers, and certainly for adults. So I would urge you to look for that flyer and make a point of coming.
What?
I'm sorry, it's noon, thank you. It's noon to 3 on April 17th.
Where?
At Sakra's facility across from Myers gas station. And it's a Sunday afternoon, so there will be no trucks running up, but we will have recycling trucks there to look at, climb in, etc.
Thank you. Seeing no other public participation is closed, and we'll move on to our city manager's report.
Okay, 2 remarks. One is to remind people that, remind residents that there's a few tickets still available for the men's club auction this Saturday. They can only be purchased at the recreation center, so get those before they sell out. And secondly, although we've had warm weather, yard waste collection does not start until April 5th. That's another 2 weeks. So yard waste will not be picked up by trash trucks. Also, putting your yard waste, trying to sneak it into your regular garbage bag is against the law. If you do have yard waste that you have to get rid of right away, you can take it to Sakra's facility in Troy, or where you can drop it off for free. But we ask that you hold it back until April the 5th, because it is a violation of our ordinance to have it out and sitting out at the curb for 2 weeks. That's it.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the city manager? All right. Moving on to commissioners' remarks. Commissioner Jenks?
I'm happy to report that once again, there will be a gallery hop. We basically will be visiting 5 art galleries that are all near Huntington Woods, and it's really easy to do. You get on a bus at the library and they run in intervals. You get on and off at the Woods Gallery in Huntington Woods. Participate in Berkeley, Rare Studio in Royal Oak, the Lawrence Street Gallery in Ferndale, and Deborah Heck's Studio in Oak Park. It's Sunday, April 10th. It's from 1 to 4:30. If you buy your tickets ahead of time, it's $5 at DPW and the library. Otherwise, you can buy them at 12:30 on the day of the event at the library itself. Transportation is provided by a bus. I've done it before. It's great. You don't really realize that you have this many galleries really very, very close. So again, April 10th, 1 to 4:30, called the Gallery Hop. $5 in advance. It's a nice thing to bring your friends to brag about the area. That's all I have to say. They're limiting my ability to speak, so I think I've given it up on this.
Darn right. Thank you. Commissioner Iverson.
I will just say, as someone who did not comply with the yard waste pickup or dates years ago, when my husband was out of town and I had leaves piled in the street, and was notified by Lou Rubenstein to get a shovel and get it out of there with a baby. I had a baby too. He had no sympathy. So I would highly encourage everybody, wait till the 5th. Other than that, I have no other comments.
Mayor Pro Tem Roselle.
Two items, Mr. Mayor. First one is, I'm pleased to announce that through the cooperative efforts of the city, along with our Water Resource Commissioner, the city was able to pursue the refunding of the drain bonds, utilizing the county's AAA rating, which has netted a savings to the taxpayers of this city of $28,000, which will have a direct, impact on the millage rate that's levied. So that's very good news that cooperatively working together to save residents money. The other thing, I'd like to congratulate our city clerk for an excellent election in March. We led the way here in Huntington Woods with voter turnout. It was a very exciting election day, and I voted at the rec center where precincts were consolidated because of the issue with Burton School, and things were managed very well, and it was very clear where folks were supposed to go. So you and the election workers, inspectors of this community did a great job, and I just wanted to commend you for that.
And yes, we have great election workers, I have terrific help, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Olsman.
I'm breaking my own rule. I just want to address one topic, and that's the issue of Rackham Golf Course and why it is not yet open. I only know what was in the Free Press article this past Saturday and Bill Leitner's article about the fact that the city is apparently in process of trying to secure a new contract operator for the golf course. But I would point out to the citizens that I have been since January attempting to reach out to the city of Detroit through different people, offering to help advise, guide, assist, do whatever we have to do as a good neighbor to help them secure the right vendor, the right contractor for that golf course. I've reminded, including speaking directly to Mayor Duggan about it in January. I've offered to host breakfast with the recreation director for the city. I've reminded them that Mayor Paul is a past president of Atlas Valley Country Club, knows a little bit about golf and a little bit about golf courses, and maybe they would benefit from a little help from us. I had a resident who lives on Ludlow forcefully advise me how much he does not like the fence at the corner of Scotia and Ludlow, which is leaning, which I don't like either, and we've been talking about for a year. You know, the city of Detroit, when it had the bankruptcy constraints wrapped around it, it was difficult to talk about getting money out of the city to reimburse us for first responder and other issues, but I'm also very interested in how we can, shall we say, participate in a revenue benefit with the city in Rackham. So I gather that they have a vendor. I gather that there's a challenge. I certainly hope that the city gets its, City of Detroit gets its house in order, but our residents need to know that Amy, at my request, has been repeatedly calling the City of Detroit Department of Recreation, trying to find out what's going on. We've used every source of contact that we have with city government in Detroit to explain to them this is very important to Huntington Woods for us, that this golf course be maintained appropriately, be up, running, and successful. This past weekend, they would have had several hundred golfers minimum at Rackham on Saturday had it been open, and it has always been open before April 1st. I read a comment from the city saying they don't open until April 1st. Well, maybe not officially, quote unquote, but it was always open early. So I'm just telling my colleagues, I'm telling the city that we're doing everything we can to help the city of Detroit understand they own it. We don't have direct control, but I'm doing everything I can to keep the lines of communication open and push it as hard as I can, because Rackham is a very vital and integral part of our community, and I want to see it open and running well as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to echo our city manager's comments about the men's club auction. There are a few tickets left. It is one of the events of the year that you should attend. So if you have time on Saturday evening, please stop at the rec center within the next day or two at the most. There aren't going to be tickets left after that, and purchase your tickets. With that, I'd like to thank the commission for all their hard work, and appreciate everyone working together to get through another agenda. With that, I'll close the meeting. Thank you.